for survival, reliant but unappreciative. What do we really know about the life of the peasant farmer? For instance, do we know that the majority of peasant farmers are women? Do we know that they have to walk for several kilometers to the farm, storage facilities and market? The roads are terrible, so it takes longer than it should. And when they get there, there's no space for more produce in the silo. The food rot before their eyes. Can you imagine seeing all your hard work going down the waste, knowing there's nothing you can do on your own to stop it? What does the rot is sold, what the prices sold on the market is also determined by the guy who's going to buy it, with no consideration whatever. But then it goes broader than that. In decision making, after all the hard work, women are told to stay in the house. The men are going to make the decisions and come. But have you noticed? You go to the marketplaces and everywhere, the role and the significance of the rural woman today, it's mind-boggling. Indeed, over 500 million women today are in rural areas, producing over 80% of the food we eat. This is a significant number not to be taken for granted. My name is Nanan Sakwao, and this is PM Express. When I come back, I'll introduce my guest. Well, thanks for staying tuned, and today we're discussing a very, very relevant but neglected issue, the role of the rural woman. And with me to discuss this from my immediate left is Bernice Sam, who's a gender consultant. Bernice, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then I have Charles Nyaba, who's a programs officer for Peasant Farmers Association. And then I have Lillian Bruce as a coordinator, Civil Society Coalition on Land.
SICO.
Oh, SICO. You are all welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Bernice, let me start with you. The role of the rural, it's basically a day marked for the rural. What's the significance?
Well, the day of the World Day for Rural Women is a UN day which falls on 15th October. It was established in 2008, but of course conversations relating to this day began in 1995 during the UN World Women's Conference. So since 2008, every year, October 15th is a day set aside to commemorate and to celebrate and acknowledge the efforts of rural women. The day essentially is to draw attention to the fact that rural women are important actors in our economy, not just the economy of Ghana, but the economy of all countries worldwide, and that they are often ignored. Their contribution to food security, to holding the families within our rural communities, their contribution in terms of ensuring that food gets to the market, that we have food on our tables every day. These are very significant contributions, and yet when we talk about development, growth of the economy, we don't think a lot about rural women. So October 15th is just to focus on all the issues relating to rural women, the good and the bad, and the next steps in ensuring that their lives are better.
Bernice, let me stay with you because, the numbers are staggering. Worldwide, over 500 million women, contributing probably between 60 to 80% of what we eat. How can we just bypass it as if, if it hadn't been for this day, yes, I know, but I've realized the magnitude of it. How can we just bypass it?
Let me just bring it home. In Ghana, the Ghana Demographic and Health Survey of 2008 states that there are over 51% women living in rural areas. And when you look at the challenges that confront them, these relate to access to land, control, ownership, also access to inputs, farm implements, the extent to which they are able to have extension officers helping them in their farming. Rural women are doing a lot of subsistent farming, not really the cash, mainly because of the economic challenges they have. The numbers are indeed staggering. They are important actors. Policies are made in the country that are supposed to affect rural women, and yet when it comes to looking at the impact, not much attention is paid to that sector of the economy. So indeed, you're right that they do so much, and yet not much emphasis is given to their contribution to GDP, as I should put it. So it's time to rethink how we see the value of rural women. And let me add, as a final point, so others can also say something, is that it's about women. And generally, looking at the way society is structured and the fact that when it comes to women's issues, we tend to downplay on these issues compared to the issues relating to men. Rural women have not featured, they are not central to conversations around development, as it were. As we go on, I'll mention some figures to look at what is happening positively in Ghana relating to rural women and what we can also do better to improve their lives.
Well, Charles, you are in the thick of things with your Peasant Farmers Association. I just want to find out what the contribution of smallholder farmers who are women, what are their contribution?
Thank you, and I want to send a message to all smallholder farmers in Ghana. This year we are celebrating the African Year of Agriculture and Food Security in Ghana. Tomorrow we are having that celebration in the Coconut Grove Residential Hotel, and most of the smallholders around will be there to actually commemorate the day. I think if you're looking at the contribution to the agriculture sector, you cannot mention or talk one through without mentioning smallholder farmers. We are contributing about 80% to the GDP in terms of both cash crop and then food need in this country. But in terms of access to government support, I think we get less than 40% if you compare to commercial farmers in this country. If I talk of government support, I'm talking the area of mechanization, access to subsidized fertilizer, access to irrigation facility and stuff like that. So I think the smallholder farmers are doing a lot. We are contributing a lot in terms of what we eat here, what is being exported, what is used for medicinal purposes and other things. But we are thinking that we are not getting enough attention. And this, it affects women more than men, because when we still go to the sector, women consume more than 60%, and men are just a few. So if you look at men contribution, it's just for cash, and then women is for domestic consumption and other things. So we are thinking that we need to actually give more attention to women farmers if we want to develop the sector.
So basically, if I get the math right, you're getting sort of 40% contribution and you're producing 80%, and those producing 20% are getting 60%?
That's the reality. I don't know if you heard of the AMSEC, the mechanization centers that were set up in the various districts by government. We tried to do a research to find out how many of smallholder farmers are actually benefiting for those facilities. If we talk of mechanization, we are talking of combined harvesters, tractors, power tillers. And it will surprise you that you cannot count any smallholder farmer who actually benefited from that. They have to rely on some few commercial farmers who have access and they are able to purchase those tractors, and then they will charge higher prices. Meanwhile, the tractors are subsidized, of which they are supposed to also subsidize for the farmers. But that's not the case. Talk of the fertilizer subsidies. You heard about it. Always government is crying that we allow the subsidized fertilizer to be smuggled across our neighboring countries. How many smallholder farmers are able to even buy 10 bags of subsidized fertilizers? Commercial farmers are able to buy this fertilizer, store them, and then sell them at a later date in the open market price for the smallholder farmers. So if you're looking at government support, we think that even though government is making effort to improve the sector, but we need to target more if you actually want to make a significant change.
Lillian, when we're talking of farming, then by all means we need land.
Yes.
Now there's always been this argument that women don't have access to land and stuff, but is it generally because women don't like to buy hectares of land? They prefer to keep it safe rather than, go all out and say, look, give me 400 acres. They'd rather just give me my 5 acres and let me do it. Is that not the issue, or is it that they want to buy but they don't have the access to it?
It's a lot of issues. And it's a complexity of conditions also, I would say. One is also that we have really not empowered our women to really look at land as an important input or resource for what they do. If we also had the figures, as you have mentioned, not only that, but about 65 to 95% of income from women are made from agriculture. And the same research also shows that out of these 65 to 95% of women that derived their livelihood from agriculture have only 1% that have access to land or control over land. So statistics when it comes to women's access, women control over land is terrible. Here we can talk about cultural issues, we can also talk about our inheritance system, we can talk about all these kinds of conditions that limited women to access land. Even other places that are a bit relaxed, particularly the research that we did in Ghana, we realized that particularly in the southern part, in the western part, if you're a woman, your chance of inheriting a land is there. But then you can also not tell what you have to do with regards to that right that you hold as a member, or the usufruct right as you have. In the northern part of Ghana, it's a no say for a woman to have a land. And if perchance you are blessed to have money to buy the land, you cannot register it in your name, because you as a woman is seen as a property of a man, either your father or your husband. So you cannot on your own as a property own a property. So that's the issue, you know. And when you come to our southern part, it's sad to say, no, oba the asase, it's always like it's the men who must have access, who must take decisions, who must govern what we have as land. But it's a common resource for all of us. It's a common resource for all of us. So a lot of factors do limit women to have access and then control. And when you look at tenure security aspect, which we thought that even the cultural aspect would have entrusted the land in the care of a woman, it's also not the same. So you may be a queen mother, but you don't have a decision to take on land issue when it comes to family matters. But yet, you, the queen mother, will be entrusted to instill and diskin a king as it is. But land is a no-go area for women. Even though you may be a queen mother, it's not your area.
Nana, can I give a positive twist to that?
Yes.
By giving you some figures. What Lilian is saying is true, but from a report by the government of Ghana, with the introduction of the land administration project, particularly the phase 2, between 2012 and 2013, as many as 4,652 women registered land.
Yes.
Compared to 12,956 by men. So again, the difference is quite glaring, that while there are efforts to get more women to register land on their own or in conjunction with a husband, a brother, or a family member, of course, men far outnumber women who are able to register land. But it's something, it's not too bad.
It's not too bad, but this is in the rural, the urban areas. But if you take the case of a rural woman, and particularly with a smallholder farmer, then there are big issues we have to deal with. And it's even coming up. It's not all that gloomy, even in the urban centers. It is the support of these interventions, the land administration project, that insisted that even they themselves, the commission themselves, decided to do a gender unit that would go out and educate people to say that, oh, a woman can also, you know, document your right on the land that had been given you either by family, either by your husband, or you purchased it, or you lease it. Let me use the right word here, you know. So it's gradually increasing. But if today we are celebrating the life of a rural woman and his contribution to agri, then we have an issue to deal with regards to control, with regards to access, and then also tenure security.
Let me stay with you. Is it socialization? I know you said that there is many factors, but times have moved on so much so that, I mean, I'm a chief, right? And I've never had a woman come to me say, you know, Nana,
I need a land.
I need a land. You know, honestly, you know, it's always men that will come, oh, you know, may I go and weed this part? May I go and do that on that? May I go and farm on that? But I've never had a woman come to me say that, you know, I need a patch of land for anything.
Because he thinks that he needs the consent of a man to be able to access the land. And you know, traditionally, Nana, a woman cannot just walk into your palace. He needs to be accompanied by someone. And these are all some of the conditions that really draw the women in accessing some of these lands. Because in most cases, when you go to ask in the palace, the first thing they ask is, who is your husband? Because they don't want to create that conflict where this woman will be too much empowered that he may not respect the husband. And it's so. And most of the interaction, particularly we have had in the northern Ghana, it comes out clear that they rather would want to form groups and use the association name to ask for a land rather than they themselves as individual women going for the land.
Now you mentioned socialization, and you're absolutely right. This has existed for many, many years, if not centuries, that the way society is constructed is such that men are the decision makers, men have the money, men are at the forefront, and women are at the back. And that transcends land decision making, even the way relations between husband and wife, within families, who is the head of the family, and all of those things come into play. So you're absolutely right, that the way women have been socialized is such that they cannot go in for the things that, as it were, provide them money, but they should take the things that give less money or no money at all. Yeah. That is why often women's contributions are not valued, and it goes on to what we are discussing now. But be that as it may, things are changing, as you rightly said. That as more people are educated, of course, again, we have majority of women in the rural areas being less educated than their counterparts in the urban areas, or as against men. So we have a problem there. But more and more as we look at getting children to go to school, as we look at creating avenues where people can discuss issues, as we look at non-governmental organizations like SICO, like WILDAF Ghana, and many other organizations going in to create awareness about the fact that men and women can go before a chief to ask for land, that the chief should also call upon the women to come for land. So, Nana, it's a task for you.
I've been told.
Yes. So now you should encourage the women to come before you without asking them who is your husband, or are you coming with your brother, or is your father leading you to do that?
I won't sell it to you. I'll just give it to you to go and work on it.
Yes, it's gradual, but I believe we'll get there. So, yes, the problems are there. We'll draw attention to them. Government must initiate policies, must implement the policies in place to address some of these issues.
Let me, you said decision making. Let me stay on decision making. I mean, women are generally more careful than men. Will take, you know, wiser risks, if I may put it, than men. So why, I don't know why aren't women, you know, engage in more decision making, or why don't we allow women in decision making? Where is the conflict?
It's a catch-22. On one hand, we should allow them to be in decision making. On the other hand, they must also get into decision making. There are avenues in our country that would allow women to get into decision making. And it starts from the school. It starts from the Mweku and the little networks and associations we have in our rural areas as well as in our urban areas. It starts with creating the avenue or the opportunity for women to get into decision making, even in schools. Let's take head prefects, assistant head prefect, you know, class prefect, and all of those things. On one hand, because the socialization is such that we don't see women as being at the forefront, it will take a long time for many to come up and say, I want to be the president of Ghana, for instance, without us saying, oh, go talk to the husband, why is your wife intending to become president?
On a platform.
Yes. So it will take some time. But again, we also have to help women to realize that we are at an age where women are equals. Women are no longer those behind. Women are working, women are holding positions of power, they're taking decisions. So we need to change our mindset that women should always be behind. whichever part of the country you come from, we should recognize that as boys and girls go to school, both do very well. Indeed, when you look at those who collect the awards, many of them are women. The best doctor award, woman. The best lawyer award is woman. You know, so it's a gradual process. And women have to learn to take decisions. They have to learn to be there. They have to learn to contest. And we must open up the avenues through processes or measures such as an affirmative action process or measure. Often when we mention a quota system in Ghana, people go, oh, no, they should go in by merit. But the reality is that there's historical discrimination against women. That is why we are saying it's a temporary special measure. So when government itself is putting in place a law on affirmative action, we should support the law. But even before the law is put in place, which takes some time, there is already a policy guideline in place. At the local level, unit committee level, you know, some chiefs are accepting the fact that a woman can be a linguist. There are women who are linguists. There are female chiefs. So things are changing. We'll get there.
Well, I have a female chief, but I don't have a female linguist. I'm going to take a break here. When I come back, I want to stay with Bernice and find out that generally the rural woman would not be, you know, your normal achimota or fancy man, fancy man,
fancy man girl.
Ah, you see, no. And until Sunday that she's going to church would not look all glamorous, you know, would always be dressed down, you know, hands dirty in there. Is that the perception why we think, oh, you know, don't include them because I don't know, you know, if you know what I mean. And then when I come back, we'll go back to Lillian and find out credit to women so that they can, you know, buy their land and till it. Don't move. Keeping the rural woman relevant through agriculture, but then again, the rural woman doesn't only do agriculture. There's so many diverse things, so we're trying to discuss everything. Before the break, I wanted to stay with Bernice on the fact that could part of the sidelining be the fact that the rural woman is too busy, you know, hands-on, you know, feet in mud, hands in mud, you know, busy feeding the whole world, and they say, oh, well, you might as well then just stay there. What?
Well, Nana, what the world has done and what the UN has done is to set aside days to commemorate several interventions. We have the Mother's Day, we have the Father's Day, we have the Women's Day, and so many other days. I mean, girl, child, I mean, so many, human rights, food security, I mean, so many days. So it's one of those days. It is not to say that rural women, because they have their hands in the mud, as it were, we don't look at what they are doing. We do. But the day is to bring attention to what they are doing and the value of, to recognize and acknowledge them. Like the Farmers' Day, recognizing the work of farmers. Gradually, it has really picked up. So many corporations are contributing. Many farmers are doing a lot to be recognized by the government. Of course, as you said, the rural woman would dress up only on Sundays. So sometimes, because they are at the back, they're doing subsistence farmers. They're not the cocoa farmers, but they are the tomatoes and pepper, you know, okra farmers. We kind of overlook what they do. But I think we should all remember that whatever we put on our tables every day to eat comes from the farm. And majority of those farmers are smallholder farms. And majority of those smallholder farms are women. So if we can do those connections of the cocoa we eat, the akasa we eat in the morning, to the fufu we eat, then we will begin to appreciate that it's some woman down there who is enabling us to have that healthy meal. And so we should recognize what they do as a country.
Credit, Lillian. Is it difficult to get credit if you're a woman to buy your land or buy your produce and set off? Or is it just, again, women being too careful? So let me just do my own small thing.
Well, it's for me, it's more or less where to start. In a sense that if we look at a typical rural woman's life, it starts at 4 a.m. dawn, trying to sweep around, trying to clean up, trying to wake everybody up, trying to fix breakfast, and then she goes looking for firewood to be used for the next day. She comes back, she has to go cook, send the food to the farmer and her husband in the farm, then go and weed, and then he carry again food back. By the time he gets home, he still have to prepare supper and then goes to bed and have to do whatever he has to do. He's the first to wake up, the last to sleep. So all this, as a typical rural woman would not even think, doesn't have an information about credit. Even if he had where to go, it wouldn't be accessible. It will be many far miles away from where she is. So these are the issues. One, there's no information about where the credits are, and the credit managers would also definitely ask for collateral, which will be difficult to get. So in any case, the land he's farming on, he does not even own any paper that would say this is my property, and for that matter, use it for that credit. So all these factors come to affect them as women.
I just wanted to add to that. Even government policies, even if you're looking at government policies, how is it addressing the needs of women? Because I was just reading some statistics for MOFA. You have about 19.5% of the workers there being women, the rest are men. In terms of extension service, you have less than 13% of women having access to extension service. You have less than 10% of the total extension officers in the field being women.
So there are women extension officers?
Yeah,
but very few.
Then the question is, why is it that women are not interested in becoming extension officers? Meanwhile, we conducted a research which states that majority of women will prefer their colleague women being extension officers to come and educate them because of cultural issues on their farms. Because some women will not be comfortable being in a lowly place with a man to do such education. Yet our policies are not directed so with motivating women to become extension officers or to be fully engaged in agriculture. When you talk of credit...
But before you go with credit, are you saying that women farmers don't have enough access to extension officers?
Yes, it's clear because majority of the extension officers, just like I said earlier on, are men. We did a research, and the research says that women farmers would prefer colleague women as extension officers compared to men because of so many issues. Yet, when you look at statistics of extension officers in the country, we have less than 10% of total extension officers being women because of so many things. Why is it that a woman will fight, do all what it takes to become a nurse, to become a teacher, but is not interested in farming? Meanwhile, he grew up in a farming community. It means that there are some barriers that we need to work on. So all these are challenges that are making the sector not to grow. Now, you were talking about credit. We were pushing for the Export Development and Agriculture Investment Fund to be more flexible so that the smallholder farmers can go in for it. But the bureaucracies a farmer has to pass through before he even access that credit. Because in the first place, you have to have a registered company, a registered collateral like a land or a house. How many women own houses? You go to the northern sector, it's even a taboo for a woman to become a head of a family. Unless your husband dies, you don't have elderly person in that family before. I mean, you are allowed to be the head of that family. And even with that, you are not part of decision making in that community because you're a woman. Because if there is decision in the community, they call only men. And you are not allowed. So if the decision that is going to be taken regarding land or farming or how to get credit and other things, it means the woman is already left out. So there are several things that we've done in the past, which I think is not helping the cause of women. And it's also affecting smallholder agriculture. The areas that women are most in when you take agriculture is in the value chain. You are looking at the processing and then the marketing part. We have about 40% of our maize or most cereals being lost through post-harvest management because of poor rules, lack of storage facilities, so many things. Yet our attention is not drawn to that. So all these factors are actually working
40%.
against 40% of post-harvest loss. You understand? Meanwhile, we are not actually, pushing our resources to address those
40% is a lot.
challenges.
Yeah, and as we speak now, we don't
So
also
if you
have
have
many
10
banks.
bags, 10 is going to go away.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And because of these issues of high risk of these crops after post-management or post-harvest management, or most credit facilities like the banks and all that are not interested to finance agriculture because they think it's a high risk for them to do it. So these
but there are also two things. The research that our colleague mentions, I'll buttress that with research that WorldAF has done in Ayensuano and Suhu municipality, where they also found out that over 70% of the people they spoke to, particularly women, did not know about the policies, did not have access to extension services. They lost a lot of their produce.
About 70%.
Yes. They lost a lot of their produce. Some didn't even know they had to apply fertilizers to improve their yields. So there are these problems existing. On the other hand is the fact that government also has in place many policies that have gender components. And these policies are intended to address some of these problems. Of course, implementation and the extent to which programs are put in place is another story altogether. But we need to recognize that in as much as there are these challenges facing rural women, government also has in place quite a number of policies, the METASIP, the FASDEP, several policies that have gender dimensions and gender mainstreaming. The Women's Directorate of the Ministry of WIAD of MOFA is the gender division, as it were, and it's also helping women. But of course, a lot can be done. So from civil society angle, we tend to focus a bit on the not too good stories, but we need to balance our conversation. I would also want to quickly add that aside agriculture, women face other challenges in the rural areas. Their health. They work long hours, as Lillian said. Access to health care, although there are many CHIPS compounds in many rural areas, access to health care, you know, they would go last when things are very bad. It's always, let me take care of the husband and the children first before they go. So their access to health care is a challenge. Maternal mortality is quite high in rural areas because they didn't go to the hospital early enough. Some don't even attend antenatal care at all. In a project that WorldAF is implementing in the Gam West district, which is around the corner from Accra, you'd be amazed that some women have 7 children and they've never been to the hospital. Home delivery, and there are challenges. These are malnourished, stunted children, and it's just around the corner. So rural women have real problems that must be addressed. So when we talk about World Rural Women's Day, let's look at it holistically, not just in terms of agriculture, but their health, their education, informal education, being able to register on the informal social security. I mean, I keep saying that women become poorer as they grow older because they never contribute to social security. So they don't, oh, I need my children to come and take care of me. And the kids don't have work. So it means that you grow old and you don't have any children as your social security, as it were. So we need a lot more women registering on the informal social security, getting on the national health insurance scheme so they can access health care. Roads have to be constructed so they can cart their wares to the market without going through middlemen who pay peanuts for what the women produce. Higher yielding seeds for the women. I mean, it's a whole gamut of problems that have to be addressed.
I'm just thinking at a woman who's old and poor, automatically you're going to be a witch. I mean,
that is another dimension. I can use statistics on that.
You don't stand a chance, do you? Because if you're going to be old and you're a woman and you're poor,
and you're a widow.
Oh, that's for that one. As for that one, you fly. Is there a way? I mean, should we prioritize it and then, you know, start tackling it maybe start with education and sort of empower them?
I should say that the Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection is doing a lot of work. Ministry of Food and Agriculture is doing a lot of work. Ministry of Health. They are all doing wonderfully well in the community. They can do better, of course. Resources are limited. If they had a lot more money, they could do a lot more work. So let's acknowledge the fact that government is doing what it can. Having said that, a lot more has to happen. One, women should be educated. I mean, we can't overlook the importance of education. Formal education, informal education is important. Where the girls are going to school, they must remain in school. We don't want statistics to show that, oh, we've got parity at primary level. Then junior high school upwards, then the disparities come back. Girls need to stay in school, and it means that school environment should be safe. They should have the sanitary facilities where they can go and change when they have their monthly flows without missing days in schools. Certain taboos should be done away with so that girls can stay in school. They can be farmers, but educated farmers, all the better for the country. So that is one. Two is that we need to address other social issues like violence against girls, gender-based violence, because where a woman farmer faces violence in the home, she will lose many days of work on the farm because she has to go to the hospital or she has to stay home because she's been beaten by the husband. So we need to address those social issues as well. We need to look at their health needs. Infrastructure is important, the road networks that I've mentioned. Markets. Whilst markets are being bent down and we are giving the women little money to go back to trading, we should also look at what facilities are in the market so that women can stay there and sell their wares. ESOCO helps with technology, getting women to know the prices. More of that should happen so that women can know that when I sell a bag of rice or a bag of maize or a bag of beans, I'll get this on the market. So they are not shortchanged by middlemen.
Charles, Bernice just mentioned something about educated farmers. Because we also have this idea that, well, either because you're going to end up on the farm, don't pay too much attention to school, or because you didn't go to school, end up on the farm. Should we have the culture where we say, look, because you're going to go on the farm, you must study at least A, B, C, D. I mean, being that you're President Farmers Association, how do we bring this culture that, look, because you're going on the farm, you have to know some basics?
You know, it's interesting. When you visit most of our farming communities, you realize, I don't know if it's coincidence, the women who had some form of education, even if it's primary level, are doing well in their farms. And you see that their families are doing better than those who have never been to school at all. You understand? So this tells a story, because even today, if you're going to make a farm, because we are gradually moving away from subsistence farming to commercialize whatever we are doing, you need to keep records. You need to read and know that this chemical, this pesticides I'm applying, this is the way I should do it. If you are applying fertilizer, this is the way you combine NPK, ammonia, and stuff like that. So education is key. We need to actually put more emphasis on that. We need to educate the farmers. Whatever they are doing, they need to know what they are doing so that they can do it better. Now, there's another interesting development or observation of which maybe, I don't know whether you've also thought about it. You ask yourself, during Farmers' Day celebration, how many, or is there any woman who have ever won the Best Farmer Award? You understand? Because if you have majority of people in a particular sector, if you think that the women cannot compete with men because of A, B, C, D, because the women are most often taking care of the house, producing food crops to feed the family, whilst the men continue to expand their farms, do cash crops. So we continue to award the men. Meanwhile, the real people who are doing the work are the women. So that's another area that MOFA would want to take a second look at. If you think you can put them in one basket and award them, separate them, have an award for women, have a Best Woman Award, and then you have separate Best Man Award. But you can continue to give awards to one, gender, and then you leave the other sector, which is so most of our policies are not actually helping. There should be a flexibility in terms of how we educate our people in the rural area. There should be priority. We should give special attention to the women. We don't need to just do a general, provide general education, because women are doing a lot of things that their colleague men are not doing. So if you put them on the same platform to compete, it's obvious that they wouldn't be able to get to where they want to go. But if you want to develop the sector, I agree with Bernice that we actually need to educate our women.
I'm going to take a break, and then when I come back, Lillian is going to educate us on LAP, CLS, GA, CP, the whole lot here. We're going to educate us on all these policies and how it's going to benefit the rural woman. Stay tuned. Well, thanks for staying tuned and joining in the most important conversation today. Paying respect and honoring the rural woman. But there are lots of
acronyms.
Yeah. And these are all supposed to make life easier for us.
Yeah.
So there's the LAP, the CLS, the GCAP, the CADAP. Are they working, and what are they? If you take us through a couple of them.
Okay. The LAP is Land Administration Project. And this is a project that is supposed to run maybe 25 years in Ghana. We have done first project, which is the LAP 1, and we are currently into LAP 2. And it's supposed to run in cohort, and each LAP would give us 5 years. And Ghana government entered the support agreement with the international donor assistance just to improve Ghana land administration. And I would also say that it was one of the intervention government was looking at after he had done the national land policy.
So this is to get everybody to register their land and stuff?
It's part of it, but it goes beyond that. Okay. It was to look at the whole land administration system that we have and try to inject some reforms. Because they realized that Ghana, as we speak, had two dual or legal pluralism when it comes to land administration. You have the customarily, and then you have the statutory. So they are trying to reform these institutional processes to ensure that you don't have to go through all these processes. It will be very efficient, it will be very transparent, it will be fair, and then you would know that this is the system I would have to pass through to get my land registered. They also wanted to do this looking at the components that they have. One of the major things or major reforms that Ghana government wanted to do was with the legal framework surrounding land administration. They realized that we have about 166 laws or legal documents all talking about land issues. So in LAP 1, they wanted to harmonize these 166 laws to have an act or a bill that would tell us how we would have to administer our lands in Ghana, and also make trials and adjudication on land very easy. So that was started. And out of that, they also wanted to build special courts only for land cases. So we had one in Kumasi and then one in Accra. The same time, they tried to also declare title areas and make land administration much more accessible. So 10 more regions open up the deeds registration in each of the 10 regions that we have, in addition to Kumasi and Accra. So 8 were opened in LAP 1. That was the first component. The second one was also to look at their business administration processes, just to enhance it, make it much more transparent, cut the human interactions and make one-stop shop where you can just push it through one window without seeing Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. D, looking for your files. They are missing every day. You have to send somebody looking for these files. But then there's a window, you push your papers in there, they check all the requirements you need to put in there to make your paper very much eligible for registration, and then you go through the same window and pick your documents. So that was done, trying to look at what to do with the whole lands commission system. And then they emerged 6 agencies under the Lands Commission, take TCPD out, and then make OS also out, and then they have the 4 divisions launched together as Lands Commission now. So that was also done under LAP 1. Then they try also to improve some of the auto photos and all the spatial maps that we have under LAP 1, just to say that, okay, this is how Accra looks like now. Not the old colonial maps and contour that we have, and then now when you come, a place that has been earmarked for maybe police depot, then you go, there's also a market, and you know, all those kind of things. So they really wanted to improve the spatial maps that we have. All these happened in Lab 1. And then after 5 years, which is from 2003 to 2011, they realized that they need to strengthen what they have started. So they launched another project, which is the Lab 2. And then the Lab 2 was also going to give some of these legal instruments some backing, like the allies of the Act and all that for the agencies that were merged. So Lands Commission was going to have an act. OSL was also going to have an act that would spell out their mandates with how they have to manage the CLSs. Okay. Under Lab 1, they also realized that if 80% of our land administration is under customary, then they need to do something that will take care of that. So they decided to have a concept. In fact, that concept was admitted from or adopted from Ashanti Hen, how he was managing his lands, and then I think Oche Hen, and then they decided to roll it out to all other traditional areas that have a specific office that would document all land transactions with you signing them off and the records being kept. Then we can deal with issue of double sales and then conflict around boundaries. So they decided to roll it up. Under Lab 1, 37 of such was created. So they decided to give OSL the mandate to oversee the Customary Land Secretariat, which is the CLS. And with that additional responsibility, then OSL must have an act, or LI, to operationalize that additional responsibility. So Lab 2 was going to do that LI for OSL. So under the harmonization of our laws and policies and frameworks, they were going to have 4 acts. Then again, improving businesses with the land administration institutions, the Lands Commission was going to have a client's access unit point where you would have to, you know, send your things where they would. That would be a unit that would liaise between the client and then the commission. So it's ongoing. 5 of such has been done as we speak now. Then they are also going to improve some maps and street naming, and with AMA has been supported, and then also they are doing GNR, geodetic reference points, where they can coordinate all the points in Ghana. They are supposed to do 47 of such points throughout the whole Ghana. As we speak now, the consultant they are doing the consultancy.
I think I need to get you back in so we do a bit more about the land thing, because it's very important. Because I know this centralized registering thing, what's happening is some of the sub-chiefs are thinking, oh no, you know, I'm not going to go and sign it because it means that whoever the paramount chief there is going to take a percentage of my money. And so I just want to stay in my own local place and sell it. And then the problem becomes of double sales and everything. So it's a very important thing. But Benis, let me come to you. Tomorrow is 1 year which the girls got adopted from Boko Haram. And since it's still rural, I'll give you 1 minute to just say something about that, and then we...
Well, I think we can emphasize the fact that these girls being abducted from their homes was a bad thing, and that all women across the world can pray for these girls, that we find them, that such things will not happen again in our part of the world. So as we celebrate Rural Women's Day, we should remember our girls and continue to pray for them.
Well, Bernice, Charles, Lillian, thank you very much. It's been very educative, very important, very informative, and I think it struck a chord. You don't take it for granted. I said if you eat kinky and you think it's nice, remember who planted the corn. Thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again.